Good morning, comrades. This is the Good Morning Comrade Show, your favorite socialist podcast. I'm here with this is Robert, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Erin.
Hello.
And we both just got off work, so we're like trying not to be too world weary at each other. We're like, we had kind of I don't want to say a mix up in recording today. This episode is going out whenever we feel like it because the rest of the crew is actually doing a live show at the WHIV radio station right now, which we're actually at recording this. And we're like, oh, if we knew you guys were going to be doing the live show, I could be playing Call of Duty, and Erin could be
Still at work.
I just got off work a little bit ago too.
Living
so
the dream.
Act like I'm not like sitting at home playing Call of Duty all day. So that's not a thing. But
yeah, I literally I got back to work today. So y'all have heard me talk about this before. We're recording this on the 4th of November. And the 1st through the 5th is like essentially go time for housing. Because it's like everybody's got to get their bills paid. And for those of you who don't know, there's 2 different schedules for when people get their checks. So some people get their checks on the 1st of the month and some people get their checks on the 3rd. And it depends on where that money's coming from, like whether it's disability or if it's SSI. There's like a lot that goes into it. So essentially, like I'm really, really busy for the first few days of the month. And so I get back to my desk ready to like do all my documentation because for all my social workers out there, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. And all of the notes that I thought I had written for Wednesday of last week were just not there. I have a distinct memory of writing them, which essentially means that I had a stress dream with detailed case notes in it. And that is deeply upsetting to me. I'm like, no, I wrote that note. I can remember what I wrote. I like remember the phrasing. And I was like, oh my God, it was a stress dream. No.
You have stress dreams at work. I disassociate at work. We're just too.
I have stress sheets about work. I wasn't sleeping at work.
I
just want to clarify in case anyone I work with is listening to this.
Well, yeah.
I was not sleeping on the job. I was doing the job while I was sleeping.
It's awful.
In my home, in my bed.
Awful. We're just too well-rounded people.
We're doing great.
Great, wonderful, and I'm sure you guys are doing great as well. So, what really helps out the show? Let's get out our shameless plugs. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Share the show. That super helps the show. We also have a link to a Patreon, which I'll leave in the show notes. I've had people say that they want us to upload to SoundCloud, which I would love to upload to SoundCloud, but until the revolution comes, that costs money, and we're already paying fees to make the podcast run. So any cash, spare change you could throw our way on our Patreon would really, really be helpful so we could get the show out in front of more people, pay for more advertising, put the show on SoundCloud, fun stuff like that. So shameless plug over. Dirty capitalism time is now ended on Good Morning Comrade.
We're not going to talk about capitalism again for the rest of the show?
No, I mean, a shilling.
Oh, all right.
As capitalists.
I was like, that's a tall promise.
Well, I mean, I just like shilling. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily. This is funny because I've been a salesman and I've been a good salesman in my life, and I've always felt kind of filthy. Like the only way I could kind of get through it was to just honestly not lie to people and just be like, yeah, this is how it is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you, and that helps. That helps a lot. Just like being an honest person. But when I like shill for the show, when I like promote the show, I don't feel gross. That's how I know the show is a good thing.
Well, that's good.
I feel like, yeah.
I'm glad you're not spending a lot of your time doing something that you don't believe in. It's good to know.
Yeah. Unlike some people, like, it's weird. We were just having like one of those talks at home about well, by the time you heard this, obviously, like, it's already even in the past. Beto O'Rourke just dropped out.
Oh yeah.
And it's weird how, like, his whole story of he ran unsuccessfully to beat Ted Cruz, and he had all this grassroots, like, groundswell support. Like, he had staffers who would, like, run through the brick wall for him. Like, they were totally on board with him. But lo and behold, like, somebody got in his ear and told him that, like, it'd be a good idea for you to run for president. He hired on a bunch of Obama staffers, and they, like, blew his head up. And, like, yeah, you could take it all the way. And, like, they don't care. They don't care if the guy wins or loses. They just know they're getting they're political mercenaries, and they know they're just getting a check. And it's weird, like, how do you go, like, how do you live that life to where you're saying things that you obviously don't believe? And the first thing I can think of is, like, again, I've said her name. She has so much free rent in my head, is Symone Sanders. How she works for Joe Biden. And I'm like, either you didn't believe in Bernie Sanders at all when you work for him, and you were like, oh, this is a nice thing I can hitch my wagon to, or you don't believe what you're doing with Joe Biden. Like, I
think you're thinking about it too black and white, honestly. Really? Yeah, I think, like, this idea that it's a this or that situation is not true.
You're right, because that's how I usually frame things.
Or, especially with politics. There could be this idea, well, I believe in, and it's the conversation we've had a million times, like, oh, I believe in the policies of this candidate much more, but I believe that this candidate has more of a shot of winning, and I believe that my time would be better spent with a winner so that I can actually affect change rather than with someone who, has all of my ideals, but maybe is a pipe dream, which obviously I think, the top tier of candidates right now, I think they all have an equal chance of winning right now. So I don't think that, if we're talking about Sanders and Biden.
I was going to say, are we talking
So we're talking about
what
Sanders and Biden.
I
think to say that Sanders is a pipe dream is very much underestimating his ground support and how many people are very, very on board with him. But I can see, I don't view her in the same way as you do. I don't think she necessarily sold her soul. I think she made a political calculus and thought that, okay, Biden is going to be the front runner. Right. Biden's going to win. I would rather be somewhere.
Let me ask you this, and somebody who knows me from, like, objectively can look at me from do you think it's a black thing? Because it's like your real honest opinion, because I hate when people say the word black community, but, like, because there is no monolith of how black people think. But when there's, like, a cultural, like a historical culture of, and I'm not going as far, I'm not calling Symone Sanders and Aunt Thomas or anything like that. But I mean, there's a culture of, like, you ride for who you ride for, and then that's the hill you're going to die on. And you're, quote unquote, ride or die. Like, you don't flip on people. Like, you don't, not I don't mean flip in the way of, like, snitching, but it's just very, like, that's just not something you do. You just don't, like, turn on your people like that.
Well, if that's how you're viewing it, but the term,
I guess I just gave it away, right?
I guess ride or die is not a good thing. Right. People are always like, oh, this is my ride or die. And essentially what a ride or die is a woman who would take charges for her man. That's where that term, well, I don't know if that's where it originated, but that's what it often means. Mm-hmm. And so being the ride or die person is not healthy for that person. Like, it's great for one individual to have someone who's ride or die for them. Like, I would love to have someone who would take drug charges for me not that I would ever have drug charges, but that's why I think the level of vitriol, I can understand why you feel the way you feel. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I get a sense that there was such the stereotype of a Bernie bro being a white, very privileged bro who was nasty to other people in 2016, and she was such a prominent woman of color who was a supporter, that for her to have defected might feel more personal to you. I don't know. Does that feel?
No, not really. I'm not saying like I think that's a good point. That might be like a side issue, but like would really like viscerally like why I follow her on Twitter and why I'm just like until you block me, like I know you don't even know who I am, you don't know the show, but until you block me, like I'm at every tweet I'm coming right at you. It's the idea of like Sanders is not. I was about to say not to me, but I mean, you can disagree with a guy, but he's like a fundamental agent of change. So if you are going to put yourself in the camp of like, I agree with Bernie on X, Y, and Z, and then you're going to flip. If you're going to flip to the almost complete opposite of that, it would make more sense to me, honestly, if she went to go work for a Republican than to go work for a neoliberal. Because at least Republicans like believe in something. Like I was having this discussion on Twitter. You can follow the Good Morning Comrade Twitter account at Comrade Morning for all the hot Twitter fights I get in throughout the day when I try to steal back some of my time at work that is being exploited. But I got into it with somebody today about how you can say what you want about Trump. And like Trump is orange man, he's terrible, he's racist, sexist, allegedly a rapist, whatever pejoratives you want to put on Trump.
Probably has a personality disorder and is more than likely
all that
getting dementia.
No defense on Trump at all. You know,
just
screw Donald Trump. Yeah, don't want anything to do with him.
Again, we are coming out strongly against Donald Trump on this show.
Yep. And next is going to be our hot take of, see, this is probably going to be old. Like, did you know that what's his face is racist? Like apparently, like Richard Spencer. Everybody just woke up to that yesterday morning. Okay,
the dapper white nationalist.
Wow,
has some very abhorrent views, as it turns out.
Who would have thought? Well, my point is, the man is an agent of change, and even if everything that he says is a lie, and even if he can't do any of it, and it's all terrible, it's all just like fascist terrible. Build a wall. Stop immigrate, kick out immigrants, Muslim ban, anything he's ever done as president or ran on as president, he's at least running on something. Where Joe Biden will literally look you in the face and say, "I bring no fundamental change." And what people don't understand, I kind of what our last couple of presidential elections were on the premise of America, hey, working people, the proletariat out there, America is not working for you. That was Obama's was an agent of change. That was his deal. Now, how much he got done or didn't get done, we can debate that. Trump ran on the same thing. America's not working for you. And Bernie in the primary ran the same thing. That is going to be the same message that wins in 2020. It's just whose vision do you want? Whose vision is going to deliver that message and do the things after that? They're all these doctors have come up with the same diagnosis, but they all have different prescriptions. So whose prescription do you want to take? That message is going to win.
Sure. So I think that's why I think we can cut some people some slack. And it's important to figure out where their intentions were, because essentially, end results are the thing that matter the most, but intentions really do matter because it's how you can talk to someone. So I can absolutely see someone in very good faith having wanted a change candidate in 2016. So being for Bernie Sanders in 2016, and then feeling like the Donald Trump presidency has been so destabilizing that having a change candidate on top of all of that already complete instability that our country has turned into might be too much for the country. I don't agree with that viewpoint, and I don't think that that's a winning thought process. But I think that's a thought process that's in good faith, and that's not necessarily someone who doesn't want fundamental change and who thinks that things are fine the way they are. It could be someone who's just saying, "I'm worried about that our country is going to dissolve, or that I'm worried that things are going to get even worse for people if we try to do too much. Like there might be an armed revolt in the streets." So I can absolutely see that being in good faith. And I think you see that a lot more with older people.
That's fair.
Who are trying to, they've been through a lot of different, we make fun of boomers a lot, but they really did live through a tough time. Mm-hmm. And then the time after the 60s, there was a lot of nonsense that happened. It was like summer of love, like everything's going to be radical change. And then bam, Nixon happened. So I can absolutely see why someone who's older feels, oh man, we've been through this before. Oh man, I don't like the way this turned out the last time, because then we got Reagan. There was a lot of bad things that happened.
Right.
So, I think people who have that viewpoint are not in bad faith. And
sure.
I also don't necessarily think that that their minds can't be swayed.
But I just don't think that's Symone Sanders. I think
that's
that
the thing,
if she would have went to work for Elizabeth Warren, I would have still been like, but I wouldn't have this like visceral reaction to her. It's that she went to work for the thing. Like, you could literally put, if you were to you could edit conversations. Maybe I might do this as a gag. I don't know if I got that kind of time. Just take her in 2016, like on MSNBC, talking up Medicare for All and Bernie Sanders, and then just have her argue against herself in 2019. And I'm just like, what even is this? Like, how can you? And anytime she's pushed on that, she just like, it's like, Simone bot shutting down.
Sure. And I agree with you. And I do think it's a shame. Like, I think she's really contradicted herself and seems to be, if that was what she really felt in 2016, if she was really a true progressive then she's clearly going back on some of her values. But maybe she wasn't a true progressive then. Maybe she just wanted to hitch her star to
That's what I'm saying.
Rising, which, whatever. I mean,
bag chasing, get politics. A check.
If any of you have ever lived in DC, it's like half that town is just people who don't believe anything that they say. They're just trying to move on up the ranks. Like, it's sad but true. But I also think a lot of the way people talk to her and talk about her, whether or not it's true. So it's this idea that, okay, just because something's true doesn't mean it can't be said in a different way. Or maybe there's two things that are equally as true, and maybe go with the less harsh one if you're trying to have an actual conversation with someone. Mm-hmm. Because, if she's on, again, Twitter is a hellhole.
Oh, yeah.
Twitter's the worst. Life. But let's say we're having this conversation. Having that nuanced conversation of like, okay, this is what you said in 2016, but the candidate you're supporting right now stands in direct contrast with that. What are your viewpoints? How do you reconcile those things? Actually, that's a legit conversation.
There's a really like softball interview of her on MSNBC, because they're like, it is what it is. We're not conspiracy people, but their thing is to like protect centrism, and where she was asked just that, and she just was like, I'm not here to talk about blah 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 blah. And I'm like,
well, then she's just not good at her job. God. Essentially, that's going to come up.
Yeah.
But I also think that if we're trying to have if you're trying to dunk on her, then be honest and upfront.
I'm trying
with
to
that.
dunk.
But I think a lot of people come at other people so nasty, in such a nasty way, and in not a very good faith way either. And again, the things they are saying might be true, but it's the way they're saying those things. They're not going to get anything back but intense defensiveness. And I just want us to be better than that. I know that's so, like, be best.
I feel like I said that before. There was some
best.
There was some like 17th century philosopher, some French guy, I can't think. It wasn't Voltaire, but it was some, and he said, yeah, you have to agree with people's arguments first, and like you have to give them the space to like back down.
Yeah.
Because if you just slam them in a corner, and and you're 100% right about that kind of stuff, but I feel like that's why a lot of my times when, like I say, we're on Twitter and people want to dunk on like Yang Gang people, I'm like, hey y'all, those are Bernie voters. Can we just kind of like just be chill with them, because we're gonna need them to win the nomination. Those are Bernie Sanders voters, like, very easily. But there is like, and I do. You're right, and it's not the best. Like, I do look at things in a very black and white way, and I just think like that. And nobody's too far gone. But I mean, just in this whole like politics game, since we're talking about the horse race again, like some people, I'm just like, come on, people. No, dunk. Just Dikembe Mutombe. Just wag the finger in their face, block the ball into the stands. Because I'm like, you're never coming over here. So I might as well get my fun in.
Well, it's one of those things that the impulse is understandable. And especially with a lot of Bernie Sanders' most diehard supporters, because these issues really are life and death. Having healthcare is life and death. Unions are the difference between somebody having to have one or two jobs. There's a lot of really life or death things on it, like on the line right now. And so the idea that anybody would get very intense and very critical of people who are trying to not have those things happen is totally understandable. And I think one of the reasons why Bernie supporters get labeled as so kind of fanatical or rabid in the way they do is because they are so intense about these issues.
Yeah, and I've said that
people
too.
Who are supporting other candidates obviously with like Warren, for instance, like obviously the fans aren't as rabid, but because they're higher educated, they're higher income, they're tend to be white women, and it's easy to feel a little bit like, for instance, I feel a little bit more dispassionate about stuff because I'm going to be fine either way. We've had this conversation, and so I feel very passionate about wanting my friends to have the things that they need and clients and the world for it to just be a general better place. But it's not a survival. It's like this election is not going to be a factor in my survival.
It's weird, but you get that. You're like a living embodiment of that uncredited Greek philosopher who, with the quote of, civilizations aren't great until they plant, societies aren't great until old men plant trees and knowing they'll never sit in the shade of those trees. And like I have that same concept, but it's like you'd be surprised at how many people don't. And like these Bernie kids, like I'm included. Like we really feel like we're flying X-wings to the Death Star, and if we got one shot at this,
but that's where people like me, and again, not to keep dunking on Chapo. I swear I'm not bringing them up to like drum up drama. It's just they really irritate me, and it's because people like me need to be the ones having these quote unquote rational conversations with supporters from other candidates. Yeah. Because I'm not in any way, shape, or form a Bernie bro, right? I'm not. Right. I don't get into fights with people on Twitter. I'm not like particularly rabid. I do really agree with his policies, but I'm not a diehard. I've talked multiple times about how I really like Warren too. So I feel like I can kind of speak to people on a different level in that way because I'm a little bit removed. Like guys like a lot of people on the dirtbag left. I mean, a lot of people on the dirtbag left are, it is a survival thing, but there's a lot of people who are well off, who are going to be fine either way. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they are being so intense about things and they're the ones kind of also being nasty online or doing, the things that turn other people off is so frustrating to me, because if they really cared about the cause, they would take one for the team and be the ones to have the conversations and to use their privilege, to use their education, to use their access to other people who are not, like worried about where they're going to get their next paycheck, right? The people who essentially like we can look at all this, like these unions, and we can look about, oh, isn't that great that they're striking? But essentially a lot of people who have white collar jobs are like, oh, that's not me. That's not my life. I don't need to join a union. My life is already fine. I'll just get another job. That's why we need people like me and people like some of those guys on the dirtbag left to have those conversations about why, like, no, your workplace is really taking advantage of you. And this is why Bernie Sanders will, you will be better off, even though you think this is for other people. It's like, okay, I don't care about Medicare for all. I have a job. Who cares? I'm always going to have a job. Right. I don't foresee myself not working. I'm like, okay, but what if you don't? Like, what if you become disabled?
Right.
What if your job becomes automated? What if, this,
what if you do like your doctor, you can keep them. What if you do really like your doctor And then, you know what? Your employer decides to go with instead of Blue Cross, they go with Aetna because it's cheaper. And guess what? Dr. Jones, who you love to go see, is no longer in the network. She's not in the network anymore. So bye-bye to her. So now you're inconvenienced for no good reason because your employer wanted to save 25 cents a head to appease stockholders.
Yeah. And oftentimes having those conversations, you don't even have to attack the other people's viewpoints because again, often, especially for the Warren voters, oftentimes they're already on board with progressive things. They just don't understand the difference or, they're not as engaged. So they just aren't thinking about the difference as much. So, just having the conversation, oh, this is why I support Bernie or this is why I support a single payer healthcare system paid for in this way. This is why. Oh, this is how I think my life will get better or how I think society will get better. Yeah, a lot of times it's just that sticks better because it's less about them. It's giving them that space to. So I always use therapy as an example, but I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but there's this thing called motivational interviewing, and it's specifically used for people who are kind of needing, wanting to make changes in their lives and maybe aren't quite there yet. But essentially, you're introducing a discrepancy. So in the substance abuse world, that would be essentially, okay, it sounds like you don't feel like you have a drinking problem, and at the same time, this is your second DUI. So those are two statements that are true. The person does not think they have a drinking problem, and at the same time, their drinking has caused them to get their second DUI. So that is because you're saying them out loud and you're not saying but. You're saying and. It's showing that, yes, these two statements are completely true. And there's a discrepancy between them because obviously getting to 2 DUIs suggests that you might have a drinking problem. So you're not telling them anything. You're not directing that person towards anything. You're just introducing the idea that, okay, maybe things are different than how you believe they are. And I think we can use that on kind of a more national political scale. Okay, so it sounds like you want single payer healthcare, and at the same time, you're supporting a candidate who doesn't believe in a full single payer system. Or it sounds like you really care about social justice, and at the same time, you're supporting a candidate who has a very spotty record. Or because that's still even like you're talking directly to the person, but just by saying, okay, just by introducing this idea like, oh, there are other candidates who have like the ideas of what you need.
No, and again, to your point is that statistically, when you look at all the polling, Joe Biden's second choice, Joe Biden supporters, like hardcore, like we love Joe Biden, like Joe all the way. They've been polled. Their second choice is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, because a lot of the Joe Biden is just name recognition at this point. It's also so early.
100 days. 100 days ain't that. We're at 100 days right now, so the time this airs, like
who knows?
It's 100 days from Iowa.
I know, but it's still a lot of time for people to make up their minds. I think a lot of people will start caring more in the new year. And will maybe make more of an effort to actually learn who the candidates are. I think it's hard for you to recognize that because you're so interested in it. But a lot of people are
such a geek.
I think even more so than normal. I think Trump and the nastiness surrounding the Trump administration has turned people off of politics so much that they're less engaged than they normally would be.
Speaking of that, like that election might be over by now here in Louisiana. The gubernatorial election is so we have our own Trump who's like gained ground here, Eddie Rispone, and our first day of early voting was which was last Friday. Who knows how this election's going to turn out by the time we post this, but it was, to your point, it was the highest number of people who early voted in the state since even higher than 2016 when Obama was on the ticket, and that was
he wasn't on the ticket in 2016.
Whatever in 8. I'm sorry.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because like apparently New Orleans like woke up and like there is an uptick in Republican voting. Like it got reported today. I was listening to PR. And but the uptake, it's not as high as the uptake in registered Democrats, who voted went from like, what was it? I want to say it was something like 28% of people voted in the primary, and it's like 36% now have already early voted.
I mean, can you imagine if Eddie Risponi wins and then we have to be like,
I can.
Whoops, that was my bad for not voting.
I know. I can totally do it.
Can I tell you a very shameful secret of mine?
Please do.
I did not vote in the 2008 election because I was going to college in DC, and 2012. Excuse me. I did vote in 2008. But in 2012, I was, which was Obama versus Romney. Mm-hmm. And I was still registered in Pennsylvania, but I was going to college in DC, and I forgot to get an absentee ballot. And I was so stressed out the entire election night because I was so worried. And Pennsylvania is a swing state.
Yeah.
So I was like, if Mitt Romney wins Pennsylvania and I didn't vote, I am never going to forgive myself. And thank God he didn't win Pennsylvania.
Yikes.
Obama did. But, buddy, I was so stressed out. And I think that is where my I vote in everything, no matter what stance came, because that was like a very stressful evening. And also I went to school at American University, which is like a very politically active school. And I got shamed. Just straight up shamed by so many people for not voting. So that's probably why we've talked about
I like that.
Why you should
American's
vote.
Cool.
American's great. What they used to say, so American we didn't have a football team. And it was way more women than men who went there when I was there. I don't know what it is now. And it was one of the top 10 LGBTQ friendly schools in the country as well. So we had a really high LGBTQ population. So they used to say, this is so rude, American University, the odds are good, but the goods are odd.
I just got that.
So cool. Thanks. Thanks, patriarchy.
That's funny. When I was a delegate for Sanders in 2016, MSNBC had this weird like voting confessional booth, and it didn't air anywhere.
LOL, that's a very MSNBC move.
But it's like, yeah, you went and like did a quick video or whatever of like, what's the thing you want to confess about voting? And mine was I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, which battleground swing state, like pretty much. I mean, we could have the election, the presidential election every year could just be Cuyahoga County and Hamilton County. And if we just did that, there would probably be the same results like as what it would be if we let everybody else vote with the Electoral College. If Cuyahoga is Cleveland, for everybody who doesn't know, and then Hamilton is Cincinnati. But my confession was, oh man, so that would be 2000... Romney, McCain, so
2008 was Obama McCain.
So that's 2008. Then I voted for Hillary Clinton in the primary.
No.
Yeah.
Say it ain't so.
Because I thought nobody would elect a black guy.
Oh.
Isn't that terrible?
That's really sad.
Golly. That still makes me want to. And then my other confession is here in New Orleans, I voted for, this isn't as bad, but it's more embarrassing.
Let's let the listeners decide.
I voted for Jill Stein.
Oh, no. I actually knew this, but every time I hear it, it makes me sad.
I just feel embarrassed because, like, the Green Party's such a scam. Convince me I'm wrong. Please change my mind. Because the Green Party, like, doesn't do anything in off year. And I didn't really know that. I thought the Green Party was just like, we're the scrappy Green Party. Like, we're getting stuff done. Like, they don't run anybody. They're not. The DSA is winning elections and doing things.
The DSA is what everyone thought the Green Party was.
Right. No, that's 100% right. I got more reverence for every 4 years that, like, the Communist Party of New Orleans drops a flyer on our door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this? But I'm not like, what is this, like, your politics? I'm just like, where are you? Who are you? Where did you come from? Where did you go?
Was this flyer union printed?
You could just join the DSA. You could like.
It was actually probably printed at the library. So
there's a commie caucus in the DSA, and if there's not one in your local DSA, I don't think there is one in the New Orleans DSA. We would just create one.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to just be out there on a limb. Like, there's a libertarian caucus in, like, a lot of different, like, not a lot, but in some different DSA chapters.
I don't even want to
It's so
about
goofy.
That makes me really upset.
It's so goofy.
But
well, whatever. I'm
I
not
think
trying
we
to have
should
a
say
inner squabble.
we've had this conversation before because that still makes me really sad that you voted for Jill Stein. But we've had the conversation if we lived in a swing state, which we don't. We live in Louisiana.
Oh my God.
Trump won by like 70%.
Yeah,
he would have voted for Hillary. I
of
just
course.
need to put that out
there.
there.
That's not even a question.
So
yeah,
for all those people who are like, meh,
I talked to
you lost in the you lost early election. I'm like,
there's a couple things like at my work recently. A young single mother, like she's not up on politics at all, but she was just like, "Have you?" These are my 2 accomplishments in politics. She says, So I've been watching the news. They're talking about the election. Who do you like? And I'm like, you like Cardi B, right? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, watch this 12-minute thing with Cardi B and this old man. And she just literally said, I like everything he has to say. I want my kids to be able to go to college. When do I get to vote for him? And I was like, let's talk about that. My second big, so thank you, Cardi B and Bernie Sanders. My second accomplishment is when I knew a guy when I worked for a bank in Cincinnati. I still know the guy, but he was on the libertarian train. Who was the libertarian? It was Gary Johnson. He was like, oh, Gary Johnson, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you cannot vote for Gary Johnson. I'm like, you can't do it. You have to vote for Barack Obama. And he was like, well, I don't. I'm like, you live in Cincinnati. I'm like, your vote counts like 10 times as much as everybody else's vote. I was like, if you're going to do this, literally, just vote for Mitt Romney. And I introduced, I within like 20 minutes, I showed him how the Electoral College worked. And then I got him hooked up with somebody to do a vote share across the river, a vote swap in Kentucky. So they would vote for Gary Johnson so he could vote for Obama. So I was just like, dude, you can't do this.
That's rough. Just a general indictment on our civics education that
I know
you were the one to introduce him to the Electoral College. And okay, let's just round up this this confessional that when I was in elementary school, we did a kids vote and I voted for Bob Dole. Okay, I need to put that out there.
Okay, Elizabeth Warren.
And it's because of I felt like what he did with Monica Lewinsky was really upsetting. So I voted for Bob Dole.
It was
right afterwards.
That's reasonable.
It wasn't from like any little feminist thing. I was like, he lies. He cheated on his wife. I'm voting against him.
Well, no, that's reasonable though. That's like black and white. Like that shows that you care about people.
I guess.
Yeah.
I told my parents and I was like, I just don't understand why you're voting for Clinton. And now I get it, but also Clinton's gross.
Yeah, he's very gross. I was such a little nerd that I remember very distinctly, like the first president I remember is Ronald Reagan. And then
you remember Ronald Reagan?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I remember him being president like a lot. I used to watch the Iran when I was like pre-K, I used to watch the Iran-Contra on TV. Because it came on, it preempted The Price is Right.
Oh, wow.
And, like, The Price is Right when you're a kid and there's, like, all kind of flashy colors and all that. Like, you want to see, like, you're just waiting to see Plinko. Because the little disc dropping and going, like, that's what you're waiting on.
Price is Right is, like, sickness to me.
Yeah. Yeah. For a lot of people.
It's like Maury and then Price is Right.
Yeah, crackers, chicken noodle soup, Price is Right. And then the little yodel guy who's like, yodel, that goes up the mountain. That's what you're waiting on when you're a kid. But for it seemed like forever and a day, it was preempted by the Iran-Contra trials. And I hate to say, like, I'm not a smart man, but I kind of understood it. I was like, oh, they sold a bunch of weapons to bad people. I was like, that's not a thing.
Is that your woke origin story?
No, not at all. My woke origin story, honestly, now this is for real. I remember being sad when Dukakis lost to Bush, and then how I remember the whole the thing about if Kitty Dukakis was raped and murdered, would you not want the guy executed? And I was like, I remember being like in second grade or third grade and being like, that is a terrible question. Like, you can't. I was like, no, you don't kill people. Like, you just don't kill them. That doesn't make you any better. I definitely do remember that.
Wow.
I was like such a little nerd.
Dukakis got something done. Sounds like.
There you go. He was straight. No, Dukakis was cool, man. That's a guy I'd want to have a beer with. Seriously, they did him real dirty, and it was just like he's a prime example. Like for me anyway. I don't know how Carter was. You know, I'm too young for Carter, but he is the prime example of like bringing harsh words to it, like a gunfight, because these Republicans are like coming at your heart all the time, and the idea of just like you're gonna like actually them and out logic them, it's not gonna work.
They're out here talking about illegitimate black kids.
Yeah, they're doing it to themselves. With McCain and Bush talking about, why you got little mulatto kids running around?
Yeah.
What's that all about? And,
Yikes.
So, I mean, like, you cannot out logic these people. You have to, like, go at their heart. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you should be more civil. Like, you don't boo the president at the UFC fight. What are you talking about? That's the only thing he cares about. Like, this is the guy who...
Also, the dignity of a UFC fight. Dignifying the office. Okay.
Yeah, or a baseball game.
Like, presidential entrance at UFC. Yeah. Was he introduced by Joe Rogan? Like, what is happening?
This is literally something that's, like, designed to replicate the Roman arena.
Yeah.
And then when people act like plebes, we were like, this high and mighty dignified thing. Like, the competing MMA franchise from UFC is literally called Bellator.
Cool.
Like, it's like we are the Roman Coliseum. Watch guys bash their brains in.
We all have too much time on our
hands. I mean, I like
what I'm hearing.
I like a good fight, but I'm just saying, let's not pretend it is what it is. But speaking of Trump getting booed at the World Series, though, shout out to the guy who's the pitcher for the Washington Nationals, who I don't know his name, but he's got that like Stalin-esque beard, and he's also in the DSA.
Whoop whoop.
What is his name? Fill time. Talk. I can't think of his name.
I mean, it was all.
Tell me some now Washington National stories. You used to go to Nats games.
Yeah, no, I used to go to Nats games all the time as a Phillies fan.
Like Boo Radley or
something? Phillies, if you know anything about Pennsylvania and specifically Philadelphia, is that we travel, we go everywhere, ride or die. If we want to talk about ride or die, Philadelphia is ride or die for its teams. So essentially, it would be the entire stadium would be whenever the Phillies played the Nats. It would just be all Phillies fans, and they would just. I feel bad about this. The poor Nats would get booed on their home field whenever they played the Phillies, and I just remember talking to this man who was like very gross and creepy. So I'm not sad for him, but I feel like he represents Nats fans in general in this story. But he was very upset, and he just looked so crestfallen, and he just said, "It's my birthday," and they just win. For my birthday.
That's so bad. The guy's name is Sean Doolittle, by the way. He's a pitcher for the Nats. And
like
he said he's a DSA member. He's not going to the White House. And also is that cool thing with the guy, when Trump got booed at that UFC thing last week, one of the fighters who he knocked out another guy, he just like retweeted a picture of himself knocking the guy out. And he's just like, Bernie Sanders, the man, or something like that.
Well, apparently the guy he knocked out is a big Trump supporter. That's what I was reading. Which, I mean, I feel like there's probably a lot of Trump supporters.
Bringing that big burn energy. If you haven't seen, like, you should, all my people out there who like UFC and then also like socialism, you should watch Felix Biederman's.
All of those people.
There's a lot, actually.
The UFC socialist contingent.
You should watch Felix Biederman's, like 12-part documentary about Trump and MMA. On YouTube that was put out by Deadspin. Rest in peace to a real one.
Oh my God.
I forgot about Deadspin.
We'll probably talk about that for tomorrow's
no more
show.
Of those.
I'm very upset. And by tomorrow, I mean Tuesday's show.
It's called Fighting in the Age of Loneliness.
Why do we try for continuity in the show? It's like, who knows when these are going up?
I know, right?
Who knows? Where are we in time? Unknown.
Yeah, we're just in we're in a memory hole.
We are.
We are in the...
There's Christmas trees everywhere, but that doesn't mean anything.
Nope. We still got Halloween decorations.
It could be August, for all we know.
We got Halloween decorations up at the house. We got 4 little ghosties and some pumpkins.
We do.
That glow and light and go, woo.
I really like them.
Yeah, they're neat.
The best.
See, that's the thing about living in New Orleans. We could leave those little ghosts out all year.
Just put a little Santa hat on them.
And nobody would. Let's just do that. Let's dress them up. Let's get like little like pet Saints jerseys and stuff, and just put them on there.
That would be really funny.
Yeah, just leave them on all year.
I'm into that plan.
No one thinks you're weird. in New Orleans.
Yeah.
You just have a funky house with Christmas lights. Like, we bought our house with Christmas lights on it, and it was like June.
Yeah, but I feel like that was more laziness than anything, because there was also a lot of holes in the wall.
That's true. Our house is
so
not that funky.
it just feels like maybe it wasn't taken care of well.
Funky good time.
Yeah, it was definitely a fixer-upper. But we were not first wave gentrifiers. Okay.
No, we were second.
Save your tweets for someone else.
Yeah.
No, we have all sorts of families in our neighborhood. We weren't any kind of gentrifiers.
Nope, we actually were not. We love our neighbors. They maybe like us. I don't know. Our dog's a little bad. Our dog will like escape the house and then run to our neighbor's house and just hang out.
Or somewhere. I don't know where he's been running. The other day he literally just
Town.
like went down the street. I got in the car to go find him.
Yep.
I was like freaking out because I was like driving all around, calling his little name out the window. And I get back to the house and he's just sitting in the front door.
He's not going to rest till he clears the neighborhood of possums, is what it is.
I know, but
he's
I'm
on possum
trying to
patrol.
explain to him that we need possums because they eat ticks.
Ticks. Do you want Lyme disease? Because this is how you get Lyme disease.
Do you want Lyme disease, Johnny?
Man, didn't your dad have Lyme disease? Did I
Yes.
just make that up in my head?
No, I feel like that's a thing that happened. Yes. He did have Lyme disease.
It drives you crazy, right? No, or am I thinking of rabies?
You're thinking of rabies, but
Yeah,
Lyme
sorry.
disease also can have effects on your brain. There's like apparently different types of Lyme disease, and then also the symptoms are so similar to so many other things that it's really sometimes you don't figure out you have it until it's too late. And because there's this idea that, oh, you're going to get a bullseye around the bite mark, but apparently that only happens in like 25% of cases. And so just because you don't have a bullseye, this has been your Lyme disease PSA.
Don't get Lyme disease. Wear high socks. I don't care about all the hippy dippy, like Avon Skin So Soft, all this natural stuff that you got from a girl who smells like a Nature Valley bar, like whatever that is, like for bug repellent. DEET. Vietnam War DEET is what you need, and high socks.
Advocate for yourself with your doctor, because I've heard multiple stories of specifically women who have gone in with symptoms of Lyme disease and had tried to get them checked out and been told it was other things, and oh no, it couldn't be Lyme disease, and then lo and behold, it was Lyme disease. So just advocate for yourself. You know, if you've ever met someone in med school, you probably know that doctors are not always the best. Some are really great. Some are the worst. Some drink a lot and you're worried about their general health and well-being. I mean, I hung out with a lot of doctors in college. A lot of them I'm worried for. Hope shout out to y'all. Hope you're all okay.
Mental health.
Yeah.
Get therapy.
Do it.
Well, because we have another podcast to record after this, so let's wrap this up. Again, check out our Twitter. You can see me fight all day long at Comrade Morning.
That's not an exaggeration.
Aaron's like, you do no work. And I'm like, I try.
I feel like last time I logged on, it was like a bunch of dudes calling you a Jewish dude who has a shitty body. And I was
that's because I got into it with Stefan Molyneux.
They were like, you're probably a Jew and you probably never have had sex. They said you were a virgin Jew. And I was like, all right, I'm logging out.
Well, yep.
No, thank you. Don't want a part of this.
Stefan Molyneux's cult is strong, but also very weak.
Second PSA.
Very weak. Like,
don't engage with Stefan Molyneux.
No, do engage.
People.
They can be hustled very easily. But come check out our Patreon. On Patreon, Good Morning Comrade. Throw us a couple bucks. We really appreciate it. Keep the show going. Facebook, Good Morning Comrade. Share the show. That is super, super helpful. Like us on all your favorite podcast apps and social media. And until next time, we will see you then. And yeah, you got anything else?
No. Just bye, I guess. All right.
Well, take care.
Watch out for those ticks.
Left is best.
Bye.